difficult through the winter months. We've got 3 or 4 or 5 months until the snow starts falling. We want to get everybody out in their neighborhood and everybody out and identifying vote and start building your team. So to do that, we need to talk a little bit about what a political campaign is and how you should think about it, especially if you're a campaign manager, because it's really just a marketing exercise. It's relationship building, it's marketing. It's a little bit different than Tide or O. Henry or Pepsi or Diet Pepsi, because there's a finite amount of time, but you know that a sale is going to be made. You know that there will be a decision made, so that you can now talk to the people who will be buying your product if you can sell your product, and so you want to get to them, and the other thing is that you have a finite area. So you know what your riding is, you know who's in your riding, and so that your plan now is to attack to people in your riding. The very first time I managed a campaign, I had a guy who I had no idea how political savvy he was, but it was Cambridge. It comes up a lot here. Cambridge had a place called Nob Hill Farms. Nob Hill Farms was the Walmart of the grocery store. And when you get in there, it's like a mile to the meat department. But on a Saturday morning, there'd be 10,000 people there. And I said, Jerry, you're going to go stand in front of Nob Hill Farms and meet the people. And I was spying on him, so I went and I hid in traffic and I hid in the parking lot just to watch him. And he was having a great time. And he had a guy named with him, an old guy named John Cosman, and John was taking him down, taking the people down, the seniors down, and helping them put their groceries in the trunk, and everybody was smiling. It looked great. And he comes back to the office. I thought it was a wonderful day. He said, don't ever send me there again. And what are you talking about? No one at that store lives in Cambridge. They came from Kitchener, they came from Waterloo, they came up from Waterdown, but everyone he met, his name was not going to be on the ballot. So what was the use? And he was a hound for votes. He wanted votes, and he wanted to go where the vote was. It says later in here that it was duck hunting. You know, you go where the ducks are and take the correct ammo. So we fashion our message to talk to as many people as we can. We fashion our message based on demographic, based on the people we meet. You know who to talk to by who they are, whether they're teenagers, whether they're looking for a job, whether they're seniors looking to keep their investment or to keep their livelihood, and you know how to talk to them, and you know what part of your platform will appeal to them, and you use it. So that's all really that you have to be able to converse with, and the more you do it, the easier it comes. So we also like to deal in, especially with novice candidates, novice campaigns. And Adrian said it yesterday, stay away from the IT as a mechanism to get yourself elected. Don't stay away from the IT altogether. Your team thinks that you got to have a great website, so do it. And people will be directed to it, and people will use it, but it's not a mechanism that gets you elected. What gets you elected is identifying your vote. What gets you elected is meeting the people in your riding who will see your name on the ballot. So be mindful of that. Be mindful of that of everything you do. But the conversion rate at IT is terrible. The conversion rate at the door is unbelievably high, especially now, especially when the undecided vote is so high. The main three parties are frantic. They don't know how to get their base back because they're not, the people aren't stupid. They see that the fighting going on between, and the rhyming and the Trudeau and the back and forthing and the to and froing, and Jag Meat getting in there for every kind of stupid thing you can think of saying. The only loser is the people. And they're all winners because they all got their paycheck, and during COVID, they all got a raise. Every time the carbon tax went up, they got a raise. In case you want to look it up, you can pretty much match it dead on. Anyway, so they know that they're the only losers, and they don't want to be part of a party anymore because they're embarrassed to be part of the party, and it's just no way to make excuses for them. Their vote is unseated, so at the door, where's Michael? Is Michael here? Michael Bader. We went down and we did a super canvass in Burlington, and we put 12 guys on the ground, and the reception at the door of people who would listen to us, who weren't liberal because they're crazy. Liberal committed vote is crazy. 50%. 50% were happy to get our literature. So, and anecdotally, one of our greatest stories, is Nikita here? Nikita, what happened? You went out and knocked on one door to talk to someone? Well, no, that wasn't in Burlington. It was in her own riding. Anecdotally, she met a lady who was dead set against the PPC until Nikita talked to her. And what happened the next day? That's a war story. That's an anecdotal story. That's something she'll remember all her life. Something to know, and it happens to all of us all the time. Every time we go out, we have stories. We have stories about, I can tell you the guy I met, he asked for a lawn sign. I said, didn't we put one here last week? And my neighbor stole it and put it on his lawn. Can I have another one? You know, I kind of think that it's going your way that day, but you know, those are always stories that we get, and then even you'll get a liberal who'll tell you, you know, about sex and travel, and get off my property. But that's a story because you expect it. So it's a lot of fun. It's doing politics. It's the way to turn sitting around and talking about what the country should be to turning the country into what it should be as an action. And so it's cathartic, it's wonderful, and it has a way of snowballing and increasing itself exponentially. So let's talk about how to get it out. So the very best way is to target your people, and the best way to do that is to get yourself your maps. Elections Canada has poll maps. The poll maps have all the polls on it. Elections Canada on the website has the results of the last 3 elections. You get your poll map. They're big maps. They're 3 feet by 2 feet, and you put them on a table, and you start to color your map according to who won each poll. And you start to create a picture of how your vote looks. David, where's David? This is David's map. I had his permission to use it because I didn't want to get sued. But David did this map, and he can tell you, and he was happy. He's happy and surprised. What happened when you did the map?
I found a dividing line along one road where north of it was mostly Liberal and south of it was mostly NDP, which means I can target my messaging to those 2 specific groups and I can.
Now, my initial way into politics was the Common Sense Revolution, which was exactly like the Purple Book here, only not as snazzy. but Mike Harris was maybe even better looking than Max. And he was on the front cover. But so the party phoned me and they said, Paul, you got to understand that Cambridge has a huge blue collar population. And I said, I've been thinking about that, and wouldn't it be nice to have that book done in blueprint? I said, I can't take a glossy thing like that into a blue collar, because now I'm the party of the rich and we got all the money in the world and blah, blah, blah. So why don't we do it in newsprint? So they phoned the Cambridge Reporter and they asked if they could do it. They printed 2 million, put them in every door and all the ridings, because it had appealed to the working man as well as and our platform is no different. So you don't have to change the message. You may have to change the way you deliver it, or you may just want to highlight different areas that will appeal to different people in different ways. Everybody's concerned about health care, so that's common, and just pick and choose what you want. You don't necessarily have to talk to blue-collar workers about no capital gains tax, but Mike Harris used to say, he got off the bus the first time and there was a gay lesbian from the gay lesbian community confronted him, and he said, I'm sure, madam, even you want a tax cut. And that was the end of the argument for the rest of the campaign. So those kind of things, go where the ducks are and take the right ammo. So this is what David did. He got himself the results. You can find them on Elections Canada. They're CSV files. Right-click on them, open them up in Excel, and it's there and it's easy. Go down the list, color your map. This needs to be done, and you can do this electronically, but your team won't be excited. If you do this and put it on the wall, and your team comes in for a team meeting and you say, here's our map, and here's what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to do it, and you show them visually, your team is committed. Because now they see you have a plan, but they see you have a plan. It's not a plan that's in a database somewhere. So you get yourself your map done. So after you've targeted the poll that you're going to do that day, then what you want to do is create maps for your Canvas team to be able to canvas in that area. And the best thing to do is go to openstreetmap.org, and then you can pull up the actual streets. They show the actual houses, and you'll get something that looks like that. Now that's done by saving it as a JPEG and then turning it into a Word file, and then you can superimpose it. Those squares are just images that you can put over. They're shapes. Our Word calls them shapes, and you put them in. And I did them in purple because of the party's purple. So not my favorite color, but anyway. So now you're going to divide your canvassers into teams. Every team has 4 players, not including the candidate. Every member of every team gets a clipboard. You can get them in Amazon real cheap. And on the clipboard, they'll have a map of where they're going. You're going to make up a brief script for everybody to be able to read. And then as well, you're going to give them a sheet of paper to fill in anybody who identifies their vote, and you're going to give them a red 2 or 3 red Canadian flags, the little small ones, about 4 by 6. And that now starts to change what a normal canvas is into something called a flying canvas. There's your script. So in your kit in front of you, the sheets that you have in front of you, all of this is there. You'll have your script there. When you're starting, we have issues about, and everybody knows that we've been branded unfairly. We don't want to, at the door, to reinforce that brand. We want to, at the door, negate the brand. We want our canvassers to be benign. We want our canvassers to say, hi, I'm here. I'm here to introduce you to the party. There are numbers here that we're talking about. Only 3 in 10 know who we are. But we have 5% of the vote. What would happen if 10 out of 10 knew who we were? And Max got us up to 10 points in the polls. We could deliver two dozen ridings in the next election. Think about it. So we want them to just meet the people at the door. I want to introduce you to a new party. Have a look, please, at the brochure. You're not representing the Liberal Party this time. You meet at the door, and just be benign. And so that when they see online that we're being called all sorts of identity names, they'll say, I met those people. They're not like that. I don't know what they're talking about. We have to negate and define ourselves. And we define ourselves by our attitudes, by our body language, by being normal people. The people in this room are our Canada. And we represent Canada. So just be yourself. Tell your team to be yourself. Don't pick on any individual item. Introduce yourself to the party and ask them, and introduce them to the party and ask them to read the brochure. And I'm trying to get it, and the very best thing you can do is before you go, plan a town hall meeting. Get a little place in the back of a restaurant, the bottom of a church, somewhere really cheap, and because you're not going to get a lot of people out, but invite them to the meeting. People want to know that their candidate is open and accessible. And is Kevin here? Kevin, we went through the exercise with Kevin, and Kevin, we did, the idea was to shut up and listen. So we did 2 of them in Kitchener, over 50 people. And Kevin was the guy at the whiteboard, and we took his mic away. And it was uncomfortable not having the mic, but we just asked the people, what's bugging you about living in Canada? And it started with this guy, and nobody wanted to say anything. And then this guy had a counter to that guy. Unfortunately, there was a chemtrail guy there that day. It was, oh, God. And he had the real reason why there were chemtrails. So we had to get the mic away from him. And Tara, well, anyway, that's a story for another day. But it started to grow upon itself. And at the end, where's Randy? I think Randy was the guy who stood up and said, you got to take this across the country. Because has anybody in this room, has any politician ever asked anybody what they think? We're paying their wage. They don't care. And what do they do in the head office? Max is the guy who'll tell you this, he'll probably in an hour. All they do is poll. They do polls that are erroneous. No frontline poll ever tells you what the story is. You've got to dig below, and maybe the 3rd or 4th poll will tell you what the real core issue is. But the problem is that they get it wrong 9 times out of 10, and we're not represented. And then getting elected becomes a scheme. Well, we want a plan. We want to talk to the people. We want to ask them what is their opinion. And if you want to invite them to the town hall, say, these are our 4 principles. Fairness, respect, I forget the other 2. I don't know why. I get a mental block. Anyway, as long as the core principles come, if you support these core principles, come, please. We want to hear from you. And we promise to shut up. And at the end of the night, here's what you do. This is the most important thing. You have somebody in the audience who's writing. And they'll stand up and say, my name is Joe Schmo, and I'm from, the part of the town. And you write down Joe Schmo, and the person will say, Joe Schmo wanted to know about inflation, and saying how bad inflation was hurting him. So at the end of the night, somebody, the candidate grabs it and he says, well, I just want to go over what we discussed today. Joe Schmo doesn't like inflation. That's a vote. There's no way that guy's not voting for you. You listen to him and you repeated it back. Jane over here, she's not too happy with woke and she's terrified to send her kids, and we got a plan for that. There's another one. It doesn't matter because because you listened, you got everybody in the room. There's no way anybody is going home who isn't voting for you because no one's ever been asked. So you're going to bring the people to a town hall meeting. Okay. The sheet is here. When they meet the people at the door, you're not going to try and convince them to become the PPC. It's not going to happen overnight, but let them self-identify. We don't want to identify a maybe or a could be or a would be, because if we're going to get two people out to vote, and we've identified one of them incorrectly, that's 0 votes for us. One voted for us and one voted against us. Only take people who support us to the polls. Voter ID is all about confirmed support. Your candidate needs flyers. The party will be doing flyers for you. The party is going to be inundated with people they have to do flyers for. We have Colton who does it, and Colton's a great guy, but there's only so many hours in the day. Don't wait for him. Get out and do your own flyer. Nikita, we did a flyer for Nikita. I did one at home in 3 hours, and it looked like that. That's just a 3-fold sheet of paper, and I personally like why I'm running for politics. It's honest, it's authentic, it's real, and people relate to it. And if you just say I'm running for politics because I'm terrified to send my kids to school, because I sent John to school and it came back Joanne, and because that's happening. And so if you say I'm running for politics because I'm terrified, then people say this guy, I can relate to this guy. Anyway, make up a brochure, make up a flyer, get it and print it, and so that your canvassers have something to drop off at each door. So you're gonna make up what we call a canvas kit, and a canvas kit looks like this. It's just a clipboard with a whole bunch of sheets of paper on it. Every canvasser has one. Every canvasser, it starts with a clipboard, a pen, a couple of Canadian flags, photocopies of the street maps so they know where they're going, and a copy of the script, a copy of how it works, 50 flyers each. We're going to do, every single canvasser will do 25 homes per hour. That's about our rate. 2 hours is about max that you can do, depending on the weather and the temperature. Maybe you can do 2 shifts, but that's about what we count on for one day. And get them name tags. I make name tags up at home and laminate them, and it's just cheap, but it's something to identify. It looks like you have your act together. You should, if you can get some money, get a bunch of T-shirts for your team. I also personally like our candidates to have an A-frame about this high. David has one ready to go, and with a sign on it, and that he can put in the neighborhood to announce our presence. We're here, we're canvassing this neighborhood. Even if you don't talk to anybody, they know, and they've seen our sign, and they know you've been in the neighborhood. So, okay, we're ready to go now to create the kit. So you start with a clipboard, clip on the voter ID sheets, clip on the script, then clip on the canvas, how it works, then click on the maps, so place it on a table, put a pen in it. Now you've got four clipboards, 1, 2, 3. If you have 12 people coming, you're going to have 3 crews. Do as many as you need, and get everything ready for them so you come, you're organized, and you can get them out very quickly. Okay, the flying canvas is done in teams of 4. The candidate is not one of the guys. So if you can get 8, better, 12, better, 16, better. So try to organize it in teams of 4. And I'm doing this now with the regional associations because each candidate can come with 4 people to begin for the very first one. And we have a good, robust canvas. We're helping, we did Michael, we did David, we did another one. Where? And Nikita. And yeah, you didn't come to Nikita's. He came to yours. Okay, but at any rate, we know Michael, and we're okay with that. But at each one of them, we put 3 crews out on the road, and we covered a lot of area. And so the candidate's job is to sit in his car, and the team decides amongst themselves where they're going to start to tackle the territory in the map that you gave them. So they're going to start on First Street, and they go to First Street, and 2 guys go to one side of the street, and 2 guys go to the other side of the street, and they give each other the thumbs up, and they start. And you're going individually. The first guy goes to the first door, and the second guy leapfrogs them and goes down to the next door. And they're meeting the people at the door. They're leapfrogging each other down the door. The script says, by the way, Wasai is in the neighborhood right now. Would you like to talk to him? No, but thank you anyway. Yeah, send him over. You take your flag, you go down the end of the driveway, and you put it in the ground. And you text Wasai, and you say, 26 First Street, they want to see you. Wasai walks down the street, gets out of the car, walks down the street, picks up the flag, goes in. Hi, I'm Wasai. I hear you want to speak to me. Yeah, I want to talk to you about immigration, you know. And so, whatever the issue is, Wasai sells them on the PPC. He has the time to do it, and gets a sign order, and of course gets a new member, and then he moves on to the next flag, because we're all selling his service that day. He's not meeting anybody who doesn't want to see him. The canvassers are moving, and they're moving very quickly. 30% of the homes are vacant because they're out shopping. We're dropping a flyer in each door, and that's how a flying canvas works. And here's the numbers. Okay, 4 canvassers equals 1 team equals 100 homes per hour equals 2.5 equals 250 voters per hour per team. If you can put 4 teams out, you can do 1,000 voters in 2 hours. Tell me anything that can give you that kind of exposure, and we'll be happy to do it. We'll be there with bells on, but nothing can match that. You were in the neighborhood, you were open and accessible, your candidate was ready to meet anybody they wanted. They saw you, they saw your car on the street, they saw your A-frame on the street. You announced your presence in that neighborhood, and your name rec on that day in that neighborhood went through the roof. So Nathan says 5 minutes. Okay, so how far are we from the election? 14 months? 56,000 voters? 28,000 voters if you only have half. Where am I going to get all those people from? But that's 28,000 voters. That's pretty impressive. You're going to convert vote that way, and your voter percentage is going to go up. And if you have a town hall that you can attach to each time you go out canvassing, and that you're doing it regularly, you can fashion your whole campaign around town hall meetings. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. You know, the media is dangerous. It's very hard for a local candidate to fight the media. And what happens if they start slagging you? Your whole campaign will get off rails because it's how do we counter the media? Now you're playing the election in the media. But why do you have to if you can just meet them at the door? And does that do any? Does fighting the media help you getting our name rec from 3 out of 10 to 10 out of 10? Canvassing does. Canvassing does everything. And then you go for a beer after, and you're laughing like hell at some guy who got the broom out and kicked you off the property. Some guy you had to tell him you were representing the Liberal Party of Canada. You know, some guy who said the candidate comes in and there's an NDP guy who wants to drag him in and talk to him for an hour because that's a tactic. They love doing that. If an NDP guy calls for your candidate, he's got to be careful because they want to bring you off the street for an hour. Then they let you go and they call her their buddies. The PPC guy was just here and I kept him off the road for half the day. And when he left, he was drunk, you know? And that's their story. And then, of course, you'll run into all the other teams out there. And so, you know, this is now takes it out of the room and into the streets. And we got to do that. I mean, you know what? Do you want to be a candidate for people you've never met? Do you want to know who they are? Do you want to be the real thing? I'm altruistic about this. This is the real thing. You know, this is how Billboard Chris became a success, because he just met everybody. And he had enough, and he cared enough to meet them. Let's be the same. Okay, I'm 70 and I got to go pee. But yeah, Bader has to go pee, but that's because he's on hallucin.
Yeah.
Paul?
Let's take some questions from the crowd. If you want to line up, we have a few minutes before Max speaks. And we'll start with you, Nikita.
Hey, Paul. I just wanted to point out how, using your methods, how important it was for us to well label our vehicles. Because finding each other, knowing where everybody is, if you can pick out your car, plus you're kind of taking over the neighborhood, right? They can see you're there. But some of us that have more rural neighborhoods as well, you can't really do the, you know, hop, skip down the street.
Sometimes the flying camera works great in neighborhoods with small properties. The bigger properties, you need a different tactic. It's a little bit different and tougher. But, you know, I don't know. You know, most of our ridings have that. But, you know, at the end of the day, knocking and dropping on rural properties is a tougher job. But then, you know, they're farmers, and why not have a farmers town hall so that you can hear them come to our thing and tell us that Max is wrong on his plan. But, you know, I have a feeling that if you run your campaign and bring the farmers together, make sure their wives come and talk about the degradation and how common sense isn't enough, and about how we have to take this country back to into a moral stand, and the wife will go home and say, this time you're voting for me. You know, run it on women's issues.
Rural people open the doors too. Yeah. But if you're doing the leapfrog and you can see a purple car in the driveway, then you can actually do the same thing. If your cars are decorated, you know where each other's are, and you get less confused.
Awesome. Let's do it. I think we should get some of these swag sellers to sell us magnets for the side of our cars.
Yeah, we have those. They're awesome. You can take them off in the bad neighborhoods.
What do you want? Yes, Michael, can I help you?
It's Gilbert first.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Gilbert. I'm new at this. Okay.
No, I literally got up for the
Trying to
same...
keep it all fair. Anyway, what's up?
Our ridings are side by side, and these numbers are perfect. And I simply got up for the same reason as Nikita there. For the candidate that has half of Manitoba, please come up with a strategy for them, because you're absolutely right.
We do it by helicopter.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Thank you.
Gas is a little expensive, but we're still okay. Yes, sir. Yes, Mike.
Yeah, we go left and right. Okay, so I have three things really quickly to say. So the first one is there's this amazing immigration brochure. You see it in your revision package. What I did, I was on that team because Doug's a great guy, and we worked 6 months or more on that. The team was amazing. Alls I did is I went to Nikki P. I don't know if you know her. You can go to the Midway, find out. I took the strip with the donation. It took her a little while, a few bucks, and she put my face in. It says solutions. It's got my riding. And then when you look at it, you also see Max and I like this together. So you can cut and paste it for Instagram. You can go the full like this. You can be on the road with a beauty, like the reception's insane. We've given out 1,500 this year, and I've got liberals taking this from me. I don't know if I align with you, son. I don't think I can vote for you, son. Well, this is a very important issue, ma'am, and a lot of people, I've knocked on 6,000 doors, and if you just have a moment for your coffee tomorrow, boom, I got a call from a person who read that thing. So I want to give a hand to Doug Bebb and Payman and Nikki P and all those guys. Can we give those guys a hand? It's available to you. I was just going to say, if you want that.
Sum up. Sum up.
Sum up, yeah. So the sum up is go get that. You can be on the road with a totally classic piece of literature that you're going to get people to sign up. The other thing was the flags that you said. I accidentally started giving those out to kids, and I go and I give the flag out to kids. They're all playing, shot a few hoops with them, and I keep canvassing to the next townhouse. And a guy comes out, and he's about this big. He looks like these bouncer guys here. He's a tradesman. And he says, "Did you give my kid this flag?" And I'm looking going, "Well, yes, sir. I'm giving him out the best flag because I don't like the flags that they're giving out at school." And he took me in and invited me in, and I met his whole family, and I signed him up as a member
Sum
that
up.
day. That's
You
it.
left
That's
drunk
all I
4
wanted
hours
to
later.
say. I'm good.
Okay, Nathan, can you tell Max we'll be a little bit late?
If we could just fly through these questions, I know we have a lot of interest. Just state your name and quick questions so we can get
But
everyone.
anyway, what Michael was really saying is the kind of anecdotal stories that you learn. And the more you do it, the more, and it turns you into a professional politician. If you don't know how to get started, start talking to people, knock on the door. You'll learn real fast. You'll learn what not to say. You'll walk away from a lot of, damn it, I got to remember to call her ma'am instead of sir. You know?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Eric Fleury from Hull Elmer. I'd like to know if you have any recommendations, kind of following up on that, on tools, especially maybe electronic tools, maybe something the party is working towards to track voter intention as efficiently as possible, to try to move away from the paper. I know it's not directly the canvas, but it's one of the things we will track when we canvass voter intentions. How best to track that so later on election day or advanced polling, we can actually get those people out and get them to vote.
The very best way is to
If
hire
possible.
someone else to do it. And that's expensive. So the very best way to run a campaign is to learn how to fundraise. Quite honestly.
Thank you.
I'll just jump in on this real quick too. I get it all the time. Do we have a canvassing app or something like that coming down? I think it's important that we learn the basics first, right? What are we trying to do? We need to connect with people at the door, and then more importantly, we need to write their names down. Start off simple on paper. I know people get all worried about technology and Google Sheets and things like that. Start with the basics, write it down. Once you're finished your canvas, you can take that back, you can put it in the database of your choice. There are off-the-shelf commercial solutions, but it's not necessary. We just need to track this info. And if you do want to make it electronic, to make it a little bit easier for you to find and run reports and things like that, put it in an Excel sheet, put it in a Google sheet. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that.
Thank you, Nathan. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I'm John Ede from Vancouver Quadra.
Yes.
I love the model, and this might not be applicable, but I just wondered if you had any stories or models that apply to apartment buildings, if we're going to fly through such neighborhoods.
Apartment buildings are easy to do the same. Get two of them on a floor, but no one can keep you out. You have the legal right to be in there during a campaign, but they may, you know, they may kick you out. I've managed some buildings, and whenever I didn't mind the conservatives canvassing, but if it was NDP, it wasn't. I mean, it come back with the cops, please. You know, when they never would. But no, you have a right to be there, canvass the same way. ID the votes that you can. It works fine, and high-rise buildings are really fast to do. But start at the top floor, okay, and go down. Don't start on floor 1 and go up, because you'll kill yourself. Anyway, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you mentioned like town hall meetings.
Yes.
Can they just be small groups meeting in a coffee shop, or, and do you have to inform like the local, anybody to do it?
Nope, just do it. Just David's last one, for David's first one was at a roadhouse. And we sat around a table and talked. And everybody was happy to be there because somebody asked them what their opinion was. What a novel idea to make politics that easy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Liz.
Paul, I have sort of an advanced 2.0 question. I have some raw data from the last election, and I did scrutineering. So when we went to each poll, we got the sheets, and I would see the conservative scrutineers. They were able to look at those sheets and know who hadn't voted yet. So they could go and do the call. How do I get to that? I've got reams and reams. All my scrutineers, we talked about that, and you said we don't need to do that. But we got some good raw data for Niagara Falls riding.
Well, you get it to the candidate, and if he has got an IT guy, you can maybe talk to somebody else who knows how to interpret it. But when we're doing get out the vote, we're marrying that up usually with scrutineers, and the scrutineer is in the polling station, and we have our own list of our own ID'd vote, and you're allowed to see the voters list in the election. So you'll go in there and you'll ask to see who voted, and you'll cross off your identified vote as having voted, and then you'll come out of you'll come away from the desk saying, you know, I got 10 that still need to vote, and then you know that's your job, and you can come and go from the polling stations, get in your car, and go knock on the door, and get them in. But you'll see the Liberals swarming the streets doing this. You know, I've run over a couple.
No, because
and
like
it felt
I said,
good.
I've got files and files and files from the polls. I want to be able to identify that from the voter list and know how to do it.
So yeah, let's schmooze everything we can. We'll find, you know, we'll deal with every kind of ID we can. Okay. You know, and so, you know, let's get a candidate into the riding and see if we can't sort out the vote. Who's voting? Who's who in the zoo?
Hi everyone, JD Meany here, candidate for Oakville West. So some of you may know I've ran 3 times now, twice federally, once municipally. So Paul, my question for you, in 2021, I had about 61 volunteers. It's the highest I ever had there. But one of the biggest challenges always was getting people that want to go door knocking. Not everyone wanted to do that. They wanted to, you know, sometimes be a bit of like an armchair volunteer, which I kind of found interesting sometimes. Like, you know, Gilbert and I have joked about it that, hey, we're candidates, so we're going to go out and pound our signs in now. So
sign guys are sign guys.
Yeah.
Get the sign guys to put up signs, and they'll bring more sign guys.
Mm-hmm.
Get the canvassers to go canvassing, and they'll bring more canvassers, and never the twain should ever meet. Don't ask a sign guy to go canvassing because they get pretty frustrated really fast. Grow your teams separately. Look for managers for those teams. If you have 61 guys, you'll be able to split them up into teams, and there's a job for everybody. Even if it's not apparent the next day or the day after, you'll say, I got someone for that job. And they'll appreciate that you found a job that they could do.
So I need the manager first to help with that.
You need a manager, and don't be your own campaign manager. You guys, you need to build teams. You need to be team players. We're looking for leadership.
Thank you.
Learn how to be leaders, and don't become one of the boys, because it just won't work really well. You got to be like Mark. Mark's a leader. Go ahead. Yes, Mark. Can I help?
Yeah, Mark Mullen, CEO of Hamilton. I advise candidates to always take someone with them when they're going to the doors for 3 reasons, especially for females: for safety, for someone to be a witness if something stupid happens, and sometimes stupid things happen, like the doorknob falling off. If someone wanted to make an issue of that, they'd call the paper and all that. So you have a witness. And the third thing is so you can be extracted. So if you have a well-meaning person you're talking to and they're going on and on about chemtrails or something, your side person can hit you and say, okay, we have to go see Joe. We have to see Joe in 30 seconds, so let's get out of here. and that's a polite way to extract yourself. So that's my advice.
It's good if you're doing a flying canvas like that to make sure you're watching your buddy, but it sort of starts to feed on itself because you start running because you want to beat your buddy the next door, and so it's good. Mark's point is well taken, but keep your eye on your fellow canvasser or parts of your team, so that everybody stays safe and everybody has witnesses to everything. Yes, sir.
Hi there, my name is Jeff Evely. I'm the candidate for Sydney Glace Bay in Nova Scotia, and I just sat in on the seminar on the finance portion of the campaign financing.
Yes.
And it seems like there's a really important line between canvassing and campaigning, and I'm really interested in having like some of these flyers that I can put out there with my headshot and things like this, but I'm concerned that maybe that would be considered campaigning and we'll have to wait until the writ drops, and I'm just wondering if maybe you could clear that up, whether we can just do like some generic flyers with PPC information on them for now for canvassing, and if we have to wait to do like the headshots and the personal touch until the writ drops.
No, there's nothing that stops you from doing anything pre-writ. The money that you raise goes into the regional association. The regional association counts for everything you do, but there's no limits to any of that. It's very easy, and canvassing pre-writ is an accepted practice. So we don't have any real issues with it. Just do it, account for it, make sure that your RA is paying the vendors properly and has all the accounting. We have to go way up on accounting at the RA level. It's just too much trouble with Election Canada if we don't.
Okay.
Well, I like to say we want to be the Jehovah Witness of the politics. You see them coming down the street and you go hide, but everybody knows who they are and they didn't spend any money and they never advertised. How the hell did that happen?
So just to clarify on that point,
Adrian.
Paul Scheer is absolutely right. You can canvass, you can do all this. What the ruling is on Elections Canada is you cannot put an indicative action on it saying elect on your literature. You can put your headshots, you can do all of it. What you can't do is you can't use the terms elect and vote that's actually defined.
What about authorized by the CFO?
Well, that's to do with that just changes because the association is the legal entity. So,
but does an authorization stamp have to be on
correct.
On all
but that could be so small it's not visible. There's actually no rules on that. You can make it slightly gray on white in 0.1 font.
Put it under the recycle stamp. Thank you. I'm at the end of the phone. If you have any questions on this. We're doing it at the regional association level just to get all the candidates going and familiar, and I'm there to get the teams off and going, and then I go home, and they get out in the field. But we did it, and every single time we did it, the candidates were delighted and came home with a number of identified vote, and it was a successful, fun day. And go for a beer after, and get your team to become a team. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Paul Scheer. Everything Paul just said, we will be covering. There's going to be a ton more training on this and other topics over the coming months. But at the end of the day, it's all about just getting people out, having these conversations, and making a simple list. There's lots of things we can talk about and strategies and all of that, but the main thing is if you don't start knocking on doors, if you don't start talking to people, we're not going to get anybody out to vote. So let's get our teams together, let's do that, and let's make this the year that we really grow the party. And with that, that brings us into our final session of the day. I know it's been a long weekend. We've covered a lot of different topics. Let's start with a video tribute of where we've come from as a party, so we can then talk about where we're going to go in the future.
over the past few months, I've been raising policy issues which I believe are crucially important for the future of our country. This is my job as a member of parliament. Moreover, it is my duty as a conservative member of parliament to contribute to debates and offer policy solutions from a conservative perspective. Otherwise, what is the point of being involved in politics? I am in politics to defend ideas, real conservative ideas, because I passionately care about the future of our country.
I think it's important to recognize that we're in a world right now where these discussions, this polarization, this fear of the other has become easy currency for politicians who do want to strike up uncertainty in people's hearts and lift those anxieties and try to get people to vote against things.
So Canada remains committed to the Paris Agreement, making major reductions to carbon emissions by 2030. The carbon tax, part of that overall effort.
What's coming clear is that this government does not have a climate plan. Their plan has failed to reach a single solitary greenhouse gas emission target.
Now it's not the birth rate, but immigration driving up the population, with a record 1 million newcomers landing last year, and millions on the way in the years ahead.
World leaders, corporate giants, top academics, they're all coming together in Davos, Switzerland today.
Trust into our institutions and particularly trust in our capability to shape a better future.
Your gender is not dependent on what parts you were born with, but rather what you feel like in the moment. Where some public schools and libraries invite drag queens, some dress like torn demons, to read to young children.
After a couple of minutes of this debate tonight, I think people can clearly see why I didn't think you should deserve a platform.
For too long, Canadian politics has been hijacked by interested groups, cartels, lobbies, international organizations, corporate and union interests, and the interests of politicians and bureaucrats in Ottawa, who are disconnected from ordinary citizens. We see it in the way the old parties try to attract voters and support, not by offering solutions that appeal to all Canadians, but by pandering to various groups and dividing Canadians into little tribes that can be bought with promises, privileges, and taxpayers' money. Nobody speaks for Canadians. Nobody speaks for the people.
The billboards have popped up along highways across Canada. Say no to mass immigration, vote People's Party. Launching his campaign from his Quebec riding today, Maxime defended the billboards.
We want fewer immigrants, a maximum of 150,000 a year. And you know, we're not for mass immigration. We are the only principled alternative. We are speaking the truth about the real issues that we have in this country. Immigration, taxation, that's important. And let's have these debates in this country, that's important. Canadians want that.
And now is the time! The greatest threat to our freedoms in our lifetimes arrived in the form of tyrannical lockdowns, mandates, and ostracization of normal Canadians by corrupt governments across the country. We were not deterred. For 2 years, we protested across the country and fought back. Even in the middle of the darkness, we held on to our hope and faith.
The largest human rights protest Canada has ever seen. The most inspiring act of civil disobedience I have ever experienced. After 2 years of government tyranny, of lockdowns and travel bans, of curfews and stay-at-home orders, of government pitting families and friends against each other, of propaganda and psychological manipulation, brave Canadian truckers started a movement that would wake up a nation and inspire the world. Starting from the west and then the east, they made their way to Ottawa. The line of trucks and cars grew as they passed through each city and province. Patriotic Canadians gathered on highway overpasses, waving flags and raising homemade signs. 13 months ago, they began to arrive in Ottawa. The career politicians that walked the halls of Parliament were reminded that these buildings, this country, belong to us. They were reminded that Canadians are not just serfs paying taxes to support their insane globalist projects. We are a proud people, not to be treated like cogs in some broken machine. Trudeau smeared the protesters as racist and misogynist. The fake news media painted it as an occupation. They claimed the citizens of downtown Ottawa were being terrorized and lied about protesters committing arson and other crimes. But I was there in person. I experienced it firsthand. And I can tell you, it was the most beautiful, peaceful, and patriotic event I have ever seen. After 2 years of misery and discrimination, of being separated from friends and family, there was a special sense of love and togetherness in the streets of Ottawa. People were proud to be Canadian again. But just as pride and patriotism was resurging in Canada, Justin Trudeau stumped it out like a campfire at the end of the night. Trudeau gave himself unprecedented powers meant to protect Canadians at times of war. He weaponized the financial system, shutting down fundraisers and freezing people's bank accounts without due process. Stormtroopers took to the streets, shooting journalists with tear gas and trampling people with horses. We were reminded the tyrants are still in control. Even though the Freedom Convoy was violently crushed, it was still a brilliant success. Public opinion had turned. Provincial government started to quietly drop mandates and restrictions. In the years since the convoy, the political establishment has done everything they can to sap the momentum out of this populist uprising. They've used every tool in their arsenal. The corporate media are still vilifying protesters and preventing the other side of the story from being told. The courts have delayed important cases or refused to hear them. Trudeau made a mockery of the inquiry, appointing a former Liberal staffer as commissioner. Many Canadians that had woken up have been lulled back to sleep. We must not forget about what the tyrannical Liberals did to us, what the NDP and the Bloc Québécois enabled, what the Conservatives failed to oppose. We must recapture the fervor and passion of the Freedom Convoy and start fighting now to make change in the next election.
Across Canada, this has been a day of protest, counter-protest, and even some confrontations over sex ed and LGBTQ rights.
To insinuate that we might actually be spending time indoctrinating them is absolutely ridiculous. You know, we don't have time for this. We just want our children to be, safe, loved, cared for, and if there is a situation where a child is in danger because of their sexuality or because of their gender identity, then it is our job under the Charter of Rights to keep them safe.
at the end of the day, we want to have a discussion. We want to establish a dialogue and say, listen, whatever is being taught to our kids, parents should have a right to know about that. It shouldn't take the strong arm of the government to have to come in and kind of force these things through. I think it's great that the education minister has made overtures towards that, and I would hope that both sides can get together and recognize that parents should be the final arbiters of what your children are learning in the classroom.
You know, we are the People's Party. We are working for the people, and that's why I'm here. I'm here with the people, and we share the same cause, the same values, and the message is very clear today. Leave our kids alone. That's a simple message. What is happening in our school is not education anymore, it's indoctrination. We need to stop that. So, as you said, I'm a politician at the federal level. What can we do at the federal level? We can do a lot because, as you may know, the Trudeau government is funding a lot of independent associations, radical associations that are promoting that radical trans ideology.
We can see how far we've come as a movement. We have shown resilience and strength. Our journey has been marked by determination and unwavering spirit. Today, we are confronted by many challenges. Our economy must be revitalized, our freedoms must be protected, and we must end mass immigration. It is imperative that we address these issues head-on with courage and conviction. We are embarking a new chapter in our history. I call upon every member of the People's Party to join me once again in this great project, the quest to make a better and brighter future for Canada. Together, we can forge a path of prosperity, freedom, and security. Let us not be complacent. Rather, let us seize this moment. Our potential is great. Let us combine our efforts and dedication to overcome all obstacles in our way.
The first time I'm seeing that video, I didn't see it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the leader of the People's Party of Canada, Max Bernier.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You're part of the change. Thank you. Merci, that was good. So, for me, that was the first time. I didn't see that video. So, they did a good job. They did a good job. And I want to thank Nathan, for that weekend and everything that all together we are doing, but also Nathan did his best to put back our party on track. And that was this weekend with that revision conference. I had the opportunity to speak with a lot of you, and I understand that it was a great success. So thank you, Nathan. And I want to thank also the team at H Office who helped us to do that conference. But in particular, one person, new on our staff. A couple of months ago, she was not with us, and we asked her to help us for that conference. She said, yes, I can help. And she did help. She was in charge of that conference, and she, I believe, called you and asking you, are you ready? Do you have everything to come to Ottawa? That's our events coordinator, Evie Lacroix. Evie, where are you? Where are you? Yes, a big round of applause for Evie. Thank you very much. So, are you happy to be here, the PPC family? That was such an interesting and productive conference for myself and for all of you. A big success, but I want to thank our presentators and also our keynote speakers, David, Billboard Chris, and miss somebody? Eric, yeah, Eric. So because of them, that was a big success. And also, we learned a lot. I believe that now we have great arguments to be ready to be out there and fight for what we believe. Because, as you know, the PPC has the best policies, the best ideas, and more Canadians need to know about them. And un gros merci à vous tous. Thank you very much, everybody. And also all of you who are online right now listening to us. I understand that that was a big success also. You're not with us in the room, but you are with us. You are sharing the same ideas and the same principles. So be ready, because we're going to be ready for the next election. We're going to be ready to share our visions of a free and prosperous country. Ready to fight the lies and the wrong ideas, the wrong policies promoted by establishment politicians. You know, we are more than a political party. We are a movement made up of hard-working patriots like you who love their country. And today, I want to talk to you about the truth. Yes, the truth. The truth that nobody else in the morally and intellectually corrupt establishment parties wants to talk about. The truth regarding a series of crucial issues for the future of our country. Je veux vous parler aujourd'hui de la vérité. Oui, la vérité dont personne d'autre ne veut parler dans les partis corrompus de l'establishment. La vérité sur une série de sujets qui sont d'une importance cruciale pour l'avenir de notre pays. In politics, if you want to help people, you tell them the truth based on facts and science. And if you want to help yourself, you tell them what they want to hear. You appeal to their emotion. I can tell you, our country is governed by selfish establishment politicians, liberals and fake conservatives who tell Canadians what they want to hear based on today's polls and focus groups, not on what is in Canada's long-term best interest. And all they care about is power. They believe and promote wrong ideas, wrong public policies on some crucial topics for the future of our country. They promote wrong policies like mass immigration and radical multiculturalism that are undermining our economy, culture, and society. Wokeism that is destroying Western civilization. Radical gender ideology that is eroding our youth's mental health. And climate alarmism that is sabotaging our prosperity and freedoms. And I must add also the war in Ukraine that is threatening world peace and our own security. All these wrong ideas are sadly widely accepted today by a portion of the population. The People's Party is there to fight these wrong ideas and promote the good ones by telling the truth to our fellow citizens. We know that even though an idea is not widely accepted, it doesn't mean it is just and true. And an idea does not become just and true because it's popular. Our ideas are just and true and will become popular if we defend them openly with passion and conviction. By doing that, we will gradually move the Overton window and change the climate of opinion. And by the way, that is the only climate change I care about. Nous savons tous que même si une idée n'est pas largement acceptée, ça ne signifie pas qu'elle n'est pas juste et vraie. Et une idée ne devient pas juste et vraie parce qu'elle est populaire. Nos idées sont justes et vraies et deviendront populaires si nous les défendons ouvertement, avec passion et conviction. When I was arrested, handcuffed, and put in jail for a non-crime after a political gathering in a park, fighting for our freedoms, the policeman asked me if I had something on me that could hurt him. I said no. Only my words, only my philosophy, only what I believe in. And if we want to win the battle of ideas, we must use our words as our weapon. We must speak out and tell the truth. So, what is the truth about mass immigration? First, let's talk numbers. The Liberal government has doubled the number of new permanent residents accepted every year from an average of 250,000 a year during the last decades to a planned 500,000 next year. We must add to that 700,000 people who represent the number of temporary foreign workers, international students, and asylum seekers, fake or real. So last year, Canada opened its door to 1.2 million newcomers. That represents the entire population of Saskatchewan. Canada is the fastest growing country in the Western world, and already 23% of our population was born outside of Canada. The growth of our population is entirely due to immigration. I will repeat it. The growth of our population is entirely due to immigration. Native-born Canadians are being replaced by immigrants. This is not a far-right conspiracy theory. It's a fact. It's a mathematical reality. La croissance de notre population est entièrement due à l'immigration et les Canadiens de souche sont remplacés par des immigrants. Il ne s'agit pas d'une théorie du complot d'extrême droite, c'est un fait, c'est une réalité mathématique. Also, mass immigration is pushing up housing prices and making the housing market unaffordable. For 1.2 million newcomers in 2023, we built about 240,000 new homes. We would need to triple the number of new homes we build each year just to meet the demand, which everybody knows is not possible. The only real and immediate solution to the housing crisis is to end mass immigration. It's simply math. There is no getting around it. But both liberals and fake conservatives would rather not talk about it. Single-family houses with a nice backyard where you can raise your children have become totally out of reach, in large part due to mass immigration. By pushing up housing prices, mass immigration discourages young couples to have children. And the collapsing birth rate is then used as justification for even more mass immigration. This insane, vicious cycle of self-destruction must stop. And it will stop with us. Mass immigration is destroying our economy and reducing our standard of living. It keeps wages down and favors big businesses who love the cheap labor rather than invest in productivity-enhancing technologies or simply increase salaries. That slows down our productivity and keeps everyone poor. We know that under the disastrous Trudeau government, Canadians' standard of living has stagnated. For a full decade, any economic growth we've had in that period has been canceled by massive population growth. So, it's simple. If the economic pie is getting bigger, but not as fast as the growth of the population, we each have a smaller slice. We each get poorer. And that's the sad reality that is happening in Canada right now. Sous la gouverne désastreuse du gouvernement Trudeau, le niveau de vie des Canadiens stagne depuis maintenant une décennie. Toute croissance économique enregistrée au cours de cette période a été annulée par une croissance démographique massive. Nous nous appauvrissons. Mass immigration and radical multiculturalism are undermining our social cohesion and tradition of peaceful coexistence. It's rapidly changing the cultural character and social fabric of our country. In the past, immigrants who came here gradually integrated into our society. They kept some aspects of the culture of their country of origin, of course. They became Canadian, but with a distinct flavor. But this is very different than coming here to recreate the society and culture you left behind and living permanently in a ghetto apart from the larger Canadian society. And moreover, being officially encouraged by the government to continue to do so rather than to integrate into Canadian society and adopt Canadian culture and values. Of course, our country, Canada, is and has always been a diverse country. We have First Nation, Inuit, 2 official languages, a multi-ethnic population, very different regional cultures. The culture of Cape Breton is very different from that of Quebec or that of Alberta or Newfoundland. All these regional cultures are intrinsically Canadian. They develop here in Canada. They don't exist anywhere in the world, only here. They deserve to be nurtured and to survive. One reply I often get on social media is that we are all immigrants and there is no specifically Canadian about any culture apart from that of First Nation. Actually, last week, an Indian immigrant replied to me on Twitter after I criticized mass immigration. He wrote, Maxime, are you not an immigrant or the son of immigrant parents? Well, no, I'm not. And you know what? That is a big problem. One of the problems with mass immigration is that now millions of residents have no clue how this country developed and no respect for our history. They think that everybody arrived here a few years ago like them. My French ancestors actually settled in New France 3 or 4 centuries ago. They created a distinct society and an original culture that only exists on this continent. Like the other historical cultures that developed here in Canada over centuries. And I can tell you, the world will be poorer and less interesting if these cultures gradually disappear over the next 2 to 3 generations, because we are quickly being replaced by people and cultures from other countries. You know that a nation must be based on a sense of belonging, of participating in common national projects, sharing the same values, being different from the rest of the world. It's only when these sentiments are widely shared that we can develop a trust of common understanding necessary for our institution to survive and to function. And you may remember that our country was almost torn apart because of misunderstandings between Francophone Quebecers and the rest of Canada. So why would you want to emphasize cultural, ethnic, and religious differences, which have been one of the main causes of conflict throughout human history? This is insane. The multiculturalist ideology has failed in Europe and here in Canada. Canada is becoming a fragmented, balkanized society where ethnic tribes live side by side. The sense of community is disappearing. Tribal conflicts are being imported. Violence in the streets is becoming common in our big cities. It's also turning us in a low-trust society, when it's obvious that only a high level of trust between people interacting with each other guarantees a peaceful society with low crime, high mobility, and well-functioning institutions. How can you have high trust when you are surrounded by people from countless cultures whose codes and behavior you cannot predict or don't understand? By people who have ways to conduct business that are common in corrupt third world countries, but are clearly unethical here in Canada. By people who may not treat you with respect because you are a woman or you are gay or lesbian. Although we have always been a diverse country, Canadian culture has a common set of rules, principles, values, and expectations, and I must add, behaviors, that most people consider appropriate and normal. You know, you know, basic stuff like where is it appropriate to poop? We must recognize now that all social customs are not equal. All cultures are not equal. The PPC is the only party that proposes to radically change Canada's disastrous immigration policy. How can we do that? By instituting a complete moratorium on immigration. A complete moratorium. And thank you. And yes, a moratorium for as long as it takes on the number of permanent residents we accept. until the housing market and other problems caused by mass immigration are back to normal or under control. And we must also substantially lower the number of foreign workers, international students, and refugees in Canada in order to preserve our way of life. Le Parti populaire va imposer un moratoire complet sur le nombre de résidents permanents que nous acceptons jusqu'à ce que le marché du logement et les autres problèmes causés par l'immigration de masse reviennent à la normale et soient sous contrôle. Et nous allons aussi réduire considérablement le nombre de travailleurs étrangers, d'étudiants internationaux et de réfugiés au Canada afin de préserver notre mode de vie. There are claims that anywhere between 20,000 and 500,000 illegals live in Canada. People who stayed here after their asylum claims were rejected or after their visas as international students or temporary foreign workers expired. The Liberal government is now planning to grant them permanent residency. This will encourage more millions to come to Canada by whatever means, including large-scale immigration scams that are bringing thousands of Indians to this country every year. But you know what? All illegals should be deported. And they will. Because Canadian citizenship is a privilege, not something we give you as a reward for not respecting our laws or cheating. Nous allons aussi expulser tous les clandestins parce que la citoyenneté canadienne est un privilège et pas quelque chose que nous donnons comme une récompense pour ne pas avoir respecté nos lois ou avoir triché. We should also repeal the Multiculturalism Act and eliminate all funding to promote multiculturalism. And instead emphasize the integration of immigrants into our Canadian society. This is the truth we must tell Canadians about mass immigration and radical multiculturalism, which are the biggest threat to the survival of our society and culture. So now, what is the truth about wokeism? The truth about wokeism is that it is a destructive, toxic, far-left ideology that reduces all social and economic issues to race, sex, and gender. The woke want us to be judged not by the content of our character, not by our personality as individuals, but by the color of our skin. And it is cultural Marxism. It's a worldview that divided people into two classes: the oppressors and the oppressed. White heterosexual men are the oppressor, and non-white women, religious and sexual minorities are the oppressed. Calling a white man an oppressor and excluding him from a job simply because of the color of his skin is racist, yes, it is racist. There's no other way to put it. And teaching a young white girl to be ashamed of her skin color is also racist. This discrimination is immoral, it is always wrong, and it is the opposite of the Western civilization values. Everybody is equal under the law. The People's Party is the only party that will put an end to this nonsense by abolishing all federal diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and prohibiting official discrimination based on these irrelevant characteristics. We will do better. We will promote unity over diversity, equality of rights over equity, and meritocracy over inclusion. This is the truth we must tell Canadians about wokeism. Le Parti populaire est le seul parti qui abolira les programmes et politiques du gouvernement fédéral en matière de diversité, équité et inclusion et interdira effectivement la discrimination officielle basée sur ces caractéristiques non pertinentes. Et nous allons promouvoir l'unité plutôt que la diversité, l'égalité des droits plutôt que l'équité et bien sûr la méritocratie plutôt que l'inclusion. And what is the truth about radical gender ideology? I believe that you know it after my friend Billboard Chris, but our people maybe online who didn't have the opportunity to hear Chris. The reality is that contradicts biological realities, and it will damage an entire generation of young Canadians. And trans activists and their woke supporters are actively indoctrinating and confusing children. In some Canadian schools today, boys and girls are being taught that they may actually not really be boys and girls. And when they get confused about their gender identity, about their sex, instead of helping them to accept their body and sex, they are being encouraged by a growing industry of psychologists and surgeons to start transitioning. There's no such thing as transitioning. And what is sad about that is they are pushing them, our kids, towards an unhealthy lifestyle, a lifestyle filled with harmful hormone treatments and invasive surgeries. This is not a lifestyle that should be normalized and encouraged. But sadly, that is the case in our country right now. What we must do, we must protect our children from this insidious and ideology that encourages and exploits gender confusion. There is no such thing as transitioning, and as my friend Billboard Chris said today, and he keeps saying, children are never born in a wrong body. And yeah. And a boy is a boy, and a girl is a girl. There's only two sexes, male and female. That's the reality. Meanwhile, the other political parties, including the fake conservatives, voted to criminalize parents and therapists who want children to accept their body rather than mutilating it. They should all be ashamed. The PPC will do the opposite. The PPC is the only party that will instead criminalize those who encourage child mutilation. Yeah. Yeah. And we will protect women threatened by men masquerading as women in sport, changing rooms, and prisons. This is the truth we must tell Canadians about the radical gender ideology. And what about the truth about climate change? Oh my God. It is not based on science, as you know. Science shows us that fears of climate apocalypse are unfounded. Climate change is real. It is an undisputed fact that the climate has always changed and will continue to change. But we know that it is not the end of the world because, until 12,000 years ago, much of Canada was under ice. Thanks to climate change, we now can live here. Climate change alarmism is based on inaccurate models that have consistently failed at correctly predicting the future. None of the apocalyptic predictions that have been made about the climate since the 1970s have come true. The truth is that CO2 is not a pollutant. It is an essential gas for life, and it is food for plants. So we need to tell these truths to our fellow Canadians. There are no reason to reduce CO2 emissions and to shut down fossil fuel energy production while the world needs more of it. The PPC is the only party that pledges to withdraw from the Paris Accord. That means no carbon tax, no harmful regulations to reduce CO2 emission, and no subsidies to the green industry. This is the truth we must tell Canadians about climate change. Le Parti populaire est le seul parti qui s'engage à se retirer de l'accord de Paris et ça veut dire très clairement pas de taxe de carbone, pas de réglementation néfaste et inefficace pour réduire les émissions de CO2 et pas de subvention à l'industrie verte. And what is the truth about the war in Ukraine? The truth about the war in Ukraine is that Canada has no business getting involved in this proxy war between US and Russia. The West and NATO have horribly managed their relations with Russia since the end of the Cold War. Vladimir Putin has a point when he says he cannot accept hostile troops and missiles in Ukraine, just like the US did not accept any missiles and troops in Cuba in 1962. We could have avoided this war if we had given Russia assurances that Ukraine would not be part of NATO. It would have saved hundreds of thousands of lives and prevented massive population displacement. Instead of pushing Ukraine to confront Putin, Canada and other Western countries should have supported this solution in the first place. And the economic sanctions on Russia had no effect whatsoever. All they did was to destabilize the global financial and monetary market. We have pushed the Russians in the arms of the Chinese and encouraged dozens of emerging countries to get together with them in the BRICS to stop depending on Western trade and finance. These counterproductive actions reinforced anti-American and anti-West sentiment in emerging countries and confirmed the rapid decline of Western influence in the world. And now, the BRICS countries are preparing a major financial offensive against the West. They are planning to launch a new international reserve currency, possibly backed by gold, to compete the dollar. This is a geopolitical blunder on the West's part that will have huge economic and military consequences because our overly indebted and uncompetitive economies are not ready for it. Western leaders will eventually be forced to accept a settlement that will be even more favorable to Russia. The liberals and fake conservatives, like the rest of the globalist Western elites, all support getting more involved in this pointless war. And Pierre Poilievre wants to send even more weapons and money to Ukraine than Trudeau. This is completely reckless and irresponsible. That is the truth we must tell Canadians about the war in Ukraine. The PPC, again, is the only federal party that supports peace and a Canada First foreign policy. The Liberal and the NDP coalition have been destroying Canada with these disastrous policies. But Pierre Poilievre will likely be the next Prime Minister, is going to disappoint a lot of people. The fake conservatives are afraid to tell the truth. They lie to us on all these issues. They won't stop mass immigration and deport illegals. They won't question radical multiculturalism, and they won't defend Canadian identity. They won't fight radical gender ideology and anti-white racism. They won't take Canada out of the Paris Accord. They won't stop sending money and weapons to Zelensky. I'm not exaggerating when I accuse the fake conservatives and the liberals of putting our country, Canada, on a road to destruction. If we allow these establishment politicians to continue to forcibly change the cultural character and social fabric of our country with mass immigration, extreme multiculturalism, and wokeism, Canada will eventually cease to exist as a distinct nation. What can we do? What can we do to reverse this trend if we want to make sure we and our children still have a country that is like Canada we know 25 years from now? A country with its unique identity intact, a country that is free and prosperous. The only way to do it is to fight the lies and tell the truth to Canadians. In times like these, we have a duty to not hide your conviction or anything that you believe is necessary and true. You have a duty to tell what you believe to be just and true to the people around you. Because you are the defenders of our civilization, and you should not be afraid to affirm it. What is the point? What is the point of having the best ideas, the best solutions for a better society if we keep them to ourselves because we are too afraid to displease others? You have indestructible weapons: your words, your ideas, the truth. You must have the courage to speak your mind. It is the only way to counter all the lies and the nonsense. And I can tell you, it's never too late to fight for what is right. It is fundamentally not only to have a better country, but more importantly, to keep your dignity. Because the person who tells the truth politely, gently, persistently is strong and free. And the more you tell the truth, the stronger you are. And it is contagious. This is what I want you to do, to stay true to your convictions. And if you do that, we will win the battle of ideas and live in a better society. Thank you. Stay strong and free. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Have a seat.
Well, folks, thank you for attending Revision 2024. And for those of you watching online, thank you as well. If you've never heard of the PPC before, maybe this is the first time you're watching this, maybe you're watching a recording, it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of people to make something like this happen, to share these ideas, to bring everyone together, and we couldn't do it without you. Thank you again for your support. If you're able, please visit our website, peoplespartyofcanada.ca, and please consider making a small donation. It takes all of us to be the change we want in our community, and we need all the help we can get to get this country back on track. Thank you for attending Revision 2024. We can't wait to see you until the next one.
So
I want to have as much of the day as I can.